Hi, welcome back to penetration testing. We are going to discuss the introduction to penetration testing methodology, that is a number of phases of penetration testing, introduction to a Kali Linux or backtrack Linux, which is used to execute the penetration testing phases like reconnaissance, scanning, exploitation, and the post exploitation phases. And then we'll try to discuss working with the attacking machine, that may be Metasploit or Kali Linux, and we use and create of the hacking lab, or how to create the hacking lab to complete this course. So we'll see what is penetration testing. A penetration test or a pen test is a security test that launches a mock cyber attack for finding the vulnerabilities a computer system. So that the cyber attacks that you find, in this case, if you consider a network infrastructure, that the inside the network we will find some of the like web servers or any email server or FTP server or your any other personal computers. So they are connected to this switch in the, we call this as local area network. They are connected to switch, and then to protect these devices, we use the firewalls, a special device or a special appliances that is connected to router. Through router, the LAN is connected to the internet, and to check the assessment of vulnerability assessment or do the penetration testing. There are two ways to do the penetration testing. One is internal assessment, another one is the external assessment one. So in this penetration testing, as we said, the pen test or penetration test is a security test that launches a mock cyber attack to find the vulnerabilities in the computer system. So what it called the cyber attacks here? The cyber attacks is an internal effort to steal, expose, alter, disable, or destroy data, applications, or other assets through unauthorized access to network, computer system, or digital devices. So threat actors launches cyber attacks for all sort of reasons, from petty theft to act of war. So they use a variety of tactics like malware attacks, social engineering scams, and password theft to gain unauthorized access to their target systems. So cyber attacks can disrupt, damage, and even destroy businesses. So the average cost of the data breach is around 4.35 million USD. So this price tag includes the cost of discovering and responding to the violation, and downtime and lost revenue, and the long-term reputational damage to a business and its brand. But some cyber attacks can considerably more costly than others, like ransomware attacks have commanded ransom payments as high as USD $40 million. $40 million. So why do cyber attacks happens? As we discussed in the previous lecture also, the motivation behind cyber attacks can vary, but there are three main categories: that criminals, political, and personal. So criminal motivated and personally motivated and politically motivated is there. So who is behind these cyber attacks means the criminal organizations, stake actors, and private persons can all launch cyber attacks. So one way to classify these actors is by categorizing them as outsider threats or insider threats. So what do cyber attacks targets? So threat actors typically break into computer networks because they are after something specific. So the common targets includes like money, business financial data, client lists, customer data, including personal identifiable information or other sensitives, and email addresses and login credentials, intellectual property like trade secrets or product designs. So what effects do cyber attacks have on the business means? you know uh, but the if the successful cyber attacks can damage the enterprise, they can cause downtime, data loss, and money loss. For example, hackers can use malware or denial of service attacks to cause system or server crashes. This downtime can lead to the major service interruptions and the financial losses. Like another one is SQL injection attacks allow hackers to alter, delete, or steal data from a system. Or phishing attacks allow hackers to trick people into sending money or sensitive information to them. Whereas ransomware attack can disable a system until the company pays the attacker a ransom. So there are reasons. So that's why we say that penetration test or pen test is a security test that launches a mock cyber attack to find the vulnerabilities in computer systems. So penetration testers are security professionals, not the unethical hackers. They are security professionals skilled in the art of the ethical hacking. So which is the use of the hacking tools and the techniques to fix security weaknesses rather than cause harm. So companies hire pen testers to launch simulated attacks against their apps, websites, networks, or other assets. So by staging fake attacks, pen testers help security teams uncover critical security vulnerabilities and improve the overall security vulnerabilities. So in this, uh, the term ethical hacking and penetration testing are sometimes used interchangeably, but there is a difference. Ethical hacking is a broader cybersecurity field that includes any use of hacking skills to improve the network security. So, in cybersecurity field means, what do you mean by the cybersecurity here? Means cybersecurity refers to an technology measure or practice for preventing cyber attacks or mitigating their impact. So, cybersecurity aim to protect individuals or organization systems, applications, computing devices, sensitive data, and financial assets against simple and annoying computer viruses or sophisticated and costly ransomware attacks and everything in between. So cyber, this is the reason uh, the pen testers they do this kind of the mock test on cyber attacks. So the term, as said, the ethical hacking or the pen testers, these they are basically the professional skill to fix the security weaknesses rather than causing the harm. I said so. Penetration tests are just one of the methods the ethical hackers use. So ethical hackers may also provide the malware analysis, risk assessment, and other services too. So then, why the ethical hackers they can become the insider or the outsiders also. So the ethical hackers can work as inside hackers or your outside hackers also, inside or outside hackers. Okay, so that is, I mean, yeah. So there may be the inside hacker or the inside pen tester or outside pen tester. So based on that, what category they are belonging, that is defined. Okay. So let me just quickly tell you the in this the security community incorrectly use this potential testing and vulnerability assessment terms interchangeably. That means what is there in vulnerability assessment is the process of reviewing service and systems for potential security issues. But whereas penetration testing is actually performs exploitation and proof of concept attacks to prove that a security issues are existing in the network or in the system also. So for example, the internal tester, trying to a pen tester trying to exploit the security issues which are present at the router level or switch or email server at the web server. So that depends. Whereas your vulnerability assessment is process just reviewing the services and systems for potential security issues, right? So then why companies do the pen test regularly? So that means there are three main reasons why companies conduct the pen test. The first reason is pen tests are more comprehensive than vulnerability assessment alone. And the second one is the cybersecurity experts recommend the pen testing so that finding the security issues if any exist in the infrastructure, network infrastructure. And the third one is the pen testing supports the regulatory compliances, the regulatory compliances. So let us see this one by one. In the pen test, the first one, penetration test and vulnerability assessments both help the security teams of any organization to identify the weaknesses in their apps or their devices and their network infrastructure. But however, these methods, these penetration testing or vulnerability assessment methods, they serve slightly different purpose. So many organizations use both the methods instead of relying on one or the other. So vulnerability assessments are typically recurring automated scans that search for known vulnerabilities in a system and flag them for review purpose. And the security teams use these vulnerability assessments to quickly check for common flaws. But whereas your penetration tests go a step further, that when a pen test find vulnerabilities, they exploit them in simulated attacks that mimic the behavior of malicious hackers. So this provides the security team of any organization or the any company with an in-depth understanding of how actual hackers could exploit vulnerabilities to access sensitive data or disrupt the network operations, like by making the servers down or making the resources unavailable in the network. So instead of trying to guess what hackers might do, the security team can use this knowledge to design network security controls for real world cyber threats. So because pen testers use both automated and manual processes, they uncover unknown vulnerabilities. So because pen testers actively exploit the weakness they find, they are less likely to turn off the false positives. So if they can exploit a flaw, so can cyber criminals. And because penetration testing service are usually provided by third party security experts, so who approaches the systems from the perspective of a hacker. So pen tests often uncover flaws that in-house security teams might miss, is one. And the second purpose of why companies do the penetration testing is as security experts recommend this penetration testing. That means what? So many cybersecurity experts, the skilled penetration testers, we say, are cybersecurity experts, and authorities recommend penetration test as a proactive security measure. So, for example, in 2021, the US the federal government that urged companies to use pen test to defend against the growing ransomware attack. So, in the White House memos list of the best practice for safeguarding against the ransomware attack in USA. One is backup your data, system images and configurations regularly, test them and keep the backups offline in one safeguarding one. Another one is update and patch the systems promptly. So this includes maintaining the security of operating systems, applications and firmwares, so in a timely manner. So consider using centralized patch management system, use a risk based assessment strategy to drive your patch management program. And the third safeguard practice, which is listed by the White House, is test your incident response plan. That means there is nothing that shows the gap in the plans more than testing them. So run through some core questions and use those to build an incident response plan. So are you able to sustain business operations without access to certain systems? Or for how long? Or would you turn off your manufacturing operations if business systems such as billing were kept? And other, check your security team's work. That is, use a third party pen tester to test the security of your systems and your ability to defend against a sophisticated attack. So many ransomware criminals are aggressive and sophisticated and will find the equivalent of unlocked doors. So, and then, segment your networks is another, the best practice, which is given as a safeguard listed by the White House. That is, there is been a recent shift in ransomware attacks that from stealing data to disrupting operations. So it is critically important that your corporate business functions and manufacturing or production operations are separated, and that you carefully filter and limit internet access to the operational networks and identify links between these networks and develop the workaround or the manual control to ensure the ICS networks can be isolated and continue operating if the corporate network is compromised. So these are few suggestions given by means US federal government, right? So that is another argument given that. And the third one is pen testing supports regulatory compliance. So, data security regulations such as the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act and the General Data Protection Regulation Acts that mandate certain security controls and other acts which we have seen in the previous lecture. So, penetration tests can help companies prove compliances with these regulations by ensuring their controls work as intended. So other regulations like let me just check it out. This why its pen is not working. Okay, yeah, just a second, please. Just give me a second, please. Okay, sorry for that. So some other regulations that explicitly requires pen test, that the payment card industry data security standard, that we say payment card industry data security standard, so which applies to the organizations that process the credit cards, especially calls for a regular external and internal penetration test. So that we have seen that what are the different tests can be done, that external and internal the penetration testing one. So uh, so this is, and the pen test can also support the compliances with voluntary information security standards, like which we have seen in the previous lecture, that you find the ISO, the IAC 27001. So these are some voluntary information security standards which serve for the to give why to do the company's penetration testing part, right? So the next one, what are the types of penetration testing is there? So, in types of penetration testing, the penetration test involves the simulated attack against a company's computer systems. So, however, different types of pen test targeted different types of enterprise assets. So, such as one is your application pen test, and another one is network pen test, hardware pen test, and the personal pen test. So what is there in the application penetration testing means the application pen test look for the vulnerabilities in the apps. It may be mobile apps, or it may be your other operating system apps, uh, and their related systems. So this application pen test, looks for vulnerabilities in the web applications or the websites of any organization, mobile applications or Internet of Things applications, and also having the cloud applications and the application programming interface. So in the application penetration test, uh, it provides the application security services, that is securely build, deploy and iterate the applications everywhere by transforming dev apps in the dev security apps, including people, processes and tools. So the benefits with this is unifies the people and process technology, means how they plan, designs, implement, and integrates and deploy security strategically into every step of the development of life cycle, the software development life cycle. They share the skills as sets and collaborations to help transformation people, process, and technology in DevOps is one of the benefit of that one. So then comes to your cloud apps, that in the cloud apps which provides to find the vulnerabilities and provide the security to the cloud. That means the cloud security is a collection of procedures and technology designed to address external and internal threats to the business security. So organizations need cloud security as they move towards their digital transformation strategy and incorporate cloud-based tools and services as part of their infrastructure. So the term digital transformation and cloud migration have been used regularly in enterprise settings over recent years. But while both the phrases can mean different things to different organizations, so each is driven by a common denominators. So the need of changes in that. So what is this cloud computing? I don't want to get into that one, but let me just list out that you might have heard about the infrastructure as a service, that you can find as infrastructure uh, as a service. Another one is the platform as a service, and you find the software as a service, right? So in the in a broader way, we can say that infrastructure as a service means it is a hybrid approach, where the most common and widely adopted cloud computing services is IaaS, we PaaS and SaaS. We say in the infrastructure as a service means it is a hybrid approach. So where organizations can manage some of their data and applications on the premises while relying on cloud providers to manage servers, hardwares, networking, visualization, and storage needs. Whereas your platform as a service gives organizations the ability to streamline their applications development and delivering by providing a custom application framework that automatically manages the operating systems, software updates, storage, and supporting infrastructure in the cloud. Whereas the third one, software as a service, which provides the cloud-based software hosted online and typically available on a subscription basis. It is so third-party providers manage all potential technical issues such as data, middleware, servers, and storage, minimizing the IT resources expenditures, and streamlining the maintenance and support functions. And another type of service, the application penetration test, which requires is the application program interfaces. So, you might have heard about this APIs. So, an API is an application program interface, right? Is a set of defined rules. So, this it provides certain defined rules, and that they enable the different applications to communicate with each other. So it acts as an intermediate layer that process data transfer between systems and letting companies open their application data and functionality to external third party developers or business partners and the internal department within their companies. So the definitions and protocols within these APIs help the business connect the many different applications they use in day-to-day operations. So which saves the employees time and break down silos that the hinder the collaboration and innovations. So for developers, API documentation provides the interface for communication between applications, simplifying the application integrations also. So how it works, I don't want to get into the details of that one, but it is simply like if you take an example for that, suppose a simple way to understand this API work by just giving one example. I don't want to go in technical details of that. So the third-party payment processing is one of the example. That means what? When a user purchases a product on an e-commerce sites like on Amazon or eBay or any other e-commerce sites, they may be prompted to pay with PayPal or pay with credit card or pay with the debit card or any other type of third party systems. So this function relies on APIs to make the connection. So when the buyer clicks the payment button, an API calls to retrieve the information and also known as a request. So this request is processed from an application to the web server via the API's uniform resource identifier. We call that URL, URI, the Unified Resource Identifier, and includes a request verb, header, and sometimes a request body. So after receiving a valid request from the product web page, the API makes a call to the external program or web server. So in this case, the third-party payment system it is. So the server sends a response to the API with the requested information. So the API transfers the data to the initial requesting application. So here the product website in this example. So while the data transfer will differ depending on the web services being used. So the request and response all happen through the APIs here. So the pen testers often start by searching for vulnerabilities listed in the Open Web Application Security Project Top 10. Any pen testers, they go with that one first. That means the open web application security project that gives uh, the top 10 vulnerabilities. So there are three new categories and four categories within naming and scoping changes and some consolidation in top 10 for 2021 OW ASP. So one you might have heard about that. The one is you find the broken access control. Broken access control is one. So most of the pen testers go through this one. Another one is cryptographic failure. Cryptographic failures, and you might have heard about the SQL injection. The SQL injections, and you might have talk about the insecure design. Insecure design, then the vulnerable and outdated components, identification and authentication failure, software and data integrity failure, security logging and monitoring failure, and server side request forgery. So these are few vulnerabilities are which the names have been changed. So whereas in broken access control, that moves up from the fifth position to the category with the most serious web application security risk in the given standards. So most of the pen testers, they always search for vulnerabilities in this first before going to do the penetration testing, either the internal pen test or the external pen test. So this the OWASP top 10 is a list of the most critical vulnerabilities in the web applications that addressed here, right? So the list is periodically updated to reflect the changing cybersecurity landscape, but the common vulnerabilities that includes the malicious code injection, misconfigurations of your systems, and the authentication failures. The the pen testing is your the network pen testing. So in this network penetration testing, you can find there are two types of network penetration testing. One is the external penetration testing, another one is the internal penetration testing. So internal penetration testers, whether they are what type of testers they are, that we'll discuss. So they try to do the testing inside. So this network pen test attacks attack the company's entire computer network, their routers, their firewalls, their switches, or their the end devices, or the servers like web servers, email servers, or any other portals. So there are, as said, there are the external tests. In the external test part or penetration test, the pen tester mimic the behavior of your external hacker. He behaves like the external hacker to find the security issues in the internet facing assets like their servers or their routers in their servers are the routers, switches, are the websites of this organization, maybe any websites, and the employees' computers, any employees' computer, individual computers. Okay, so websites comes under your web servers, your email servers, or what are the weaknesses are there, or vulnerabilities are there in the routers. So those will be tested by this external testers. So these external testers are sometimes called the external tests, because the pen tester try to break into the network from the outside network, not from inside network. This is inside and this is outside the network. So similarly, having the internal tests, internal penetration tests are also there. So the pen testers mimic the behavior of the malicious insider. They behaves like the malicious insider, or the malicious insider are the hackers. So malicious insiders means what? You know, the insider threats are the cybersecurity threats that originate with authorized users. So all the users inside the organization, they are authorized users, like their employees, contractors, or business partners, right? Who intentionally or accidentally misuse their legitimate access, or have their accounts hijacked by the cyber criminals and act like the insiders. So while external threats are more common and grab the biggest cyber attack headlines, and insider threats, so whether the malicious or the result of the negligence, can be more costly and dangerous. So the types of insider threats is like, malicious insiders. Let me neatly write this. Your malicious insider is one, and these malicious insiders are usually disgruntled current employee, or disgruntled the former employees whose access credentials have not been retired. So who they intentionally misuse their access for revenge or financial gain, or both. So some malicious insiders works for the malicious outsider, such as a hacker, competitor, or the nation state actor, to disrupt the business operations, or to leak the customer the information or intellectual properties or trade secrets or other sensitive data. Another one is the negligent insiders. The malicious insiders are the negligent insiders. The negligent insiders. So these negligent insiders do not have the malicious intent, but create security threats through ignorance or the carelessness is another one. And sometimes the compromised insiders are also there. The third one is the compromised insiders. The compromised insiders. So these compromised insiders are the legitimate users whose credentials have been stolen by the outside threat actors. And threats launched via the compromised insiders are the most expansive insider threats, that costing the victims around 804,997 remediate on average, according to the phenomenon report. So these are two types of the attackers, as we said, the external pen testers and the internal pen testers. And then comes to the next what called the type of penetration testing is the hardware penetration testing. So in the hardware pen testing, that means these security tests look for the vulnerabilities in devices which are connected to the internet or which are connected to the network. It may be a private network or the public network. No, such as the devices which are connected to network, such as your laptop or your mobile or IoT devices, and some operational technologies like your routers, servers, or anything. So the pen testers may look for software flaws, like an operating system. These in the hardware pen test, they look for software flaws like operating system that exploit that that allows the hackers to gain the remote access to an endpoint. That means if the hardware is suppose the some ports like SSL ports, if they are open, then the hackers can connect remotely to those end devices. So they may look for physical vulnerabilities. Pen testers, they look for the software flaws, but they may look for the physical vulnerabilities also, like an improperly secure data center that malicious actors could slip into. So the testing team may also assess how hackers could move from a compromised device to other part of your compromised devices. So they may use some external hardware. They may leave this. I mean the these devices, like these ports can be used like RJ45 connector, means either they may connect through connection oriented, that means using the cables, or they may connect with the wireless connections to gain access of the device of your network. So once if any device is compromised, then the hackers can try to get the control of other devices which are connected in the network. Another one is the personal pen testers. So in personal pen testing, that looks for weaknesses in employee cybersecurity hygiene actually. So put another way, the personal pen testing is no these pen tests, personal pen tests, security tests assess how vulnerable a company is to social engineering attacks. So in social engineering attacks means the pen testers use the phishing, or the wishing attack, your phishing, or your wishing attack, that is voice phishing attack, or smishing attack, that is the SMS phishing, to trick the employees into the divulging the sensitive information. So in phishing, what happens, uh, so the phishing attacks are the fraudulent emails, in the phishing they find fraudulent the emails, or some the text messages, this kind of things, the text messages, uh, or some they may find the phone calls, right? So this phishing attack, the fraudulent of this email, text message, phone calls, are the websites designed to trick users into downloading the malware, that is the malicious malware, that is the malicious software, by sharing sensitive information or the personal data like social security and credit card numbers, bank account numbers, or login credentials, right? Are these phishing attacks are fraudulent to taking other actions that exposes themselves or their organizations by the cyber crimes. So this is, or whereas in the um, the smishing attacks. That smishing attacks are going to send the short messages. That is, smishing is a social engineering attack that uses the fake mobile text messages to trick people into downloading malware and sharing the sensitive information or sending money to cyber criminals. The term smishing is a combination of SMS or the short message service. So the technology behind the text message and your the phishing is there. So smishing is an increasingly popular form of your cyber crime. So according to the proof points of 2023, 2020, the state of your fish, that reports around 76% of organizations experienced this phishing attacks in 2022. So there are several factors that have contributed to raise this machine. For one reason, suppose one factor, the hackers on the perpetrating these attacks, sometimes called the smishers, so that know that victims are likelier to click on text messages than other links. So at the same time, advances in spam filters have made it harder for other forms of phishing like emails and phone calls to reach their targets. The reason for this smishing is the increase of your bring your own device, that you find the reason for this in it, bring your own device, and remote work arrangements have also led to more people using their mobile devices at work and making it easier for cyber criminals to access the company networks through employee cell phones. So that is the possible parts of this. So the personal pen test may also evaluate the physical office securities. So that is, for example, the pen tester may try to sneak into a building by disguising themselves as a delivery people. So this method called the tailgating is commonly used by the real world criminals. So then we talk about the penetration testing process. What are the process are there? So before a pen test begins, the testing team and the company set certain scope or goals. Set of the scope is given. So the scope outline which systems will be tested. Only limited systems or the entire network systems will be tested. So that scope will define that. So when the testing will happen and the methods which the penetration testers can use, that defined by this scope, that set of scopes. So the scope also determines how much information the pen testers will have ahead of time, so that they can do the penetration testing part. So with the scope test set, the testing begins. Then pen testers may follow a number of pen testing methodologies. So some of the common one which includes uh, that methodologies like the open web application security projects, application security testing, which we just discussed. Another one is the penetration testing execution standards, that is following the different steps like the reconnaissance phase, or sometimes we defined it as gathering the information, the gathering different informations like pre-engagement interactions, intelligent gathering or intelligence gathering, threat modeling, vulnerability analysis, then exploitation, post-exploitation, and reporting. So these are all cover under that. And another the common one which includes the pen testing methodologies, the National Institute of Standard and Technology. This NIST which gives the technical guide to the information security testing and the assessment. So the purpose of this technical guideline document is to assist the organizations in planning and conducting technical information security tests and examinations, analyzing findings, and developing mitigation strategies. So the guide provides practical recommendations for designing, implementing, and maintaining technical information security tests and examination process and procedures. So these can be used for several purposes, such as finding vulnerabilities in system or network and verifying compliance with the policy or other requirements. So the guide is not intended to present a comprehensive information security testing and the examination program, but rather an overview of key elements of technical security testing and examination with a emphasis on specific technical techniques that benefits and limitations of each and recommendations for their use in this. So in the in this process, uh, the most of the this process that includes based on how much information the pen testers are getting to do the penetration testing, there it is treated as your white box testing or black box testing or gray box testing. So if you see that in the white box testing or white box penetration testing, of penetration testing process, we can say that. So in this white box penetration, category, the white box pen testing is when the tester has access to a complete information about the source code and the network infrastructure, that how many servers are there, and how many switches are used, how many the employees desktops are there, and how they are communicating with each other, and whether the network is configured with the firewalls or not at the router level when it is connected to the internet. So this entire infrastructure information will be given to the white box pen testing. That is the scope which is outlined. So basically the pen testing team knows all there is to know about this entire system, so that we call the white box penetration testing. So therefore, they can perform a most comprehensive study of its weaknesses. Is there any weakness in the web server or email server or at the employees' desktops? And this analysis, this white box penetration testing, analysis includes the assessing areas such as code quality or the system design. So other names of this white box testing, which includes the internal penetration testing or the glass box testing also, right? So the names indicates that this audit aim to study the entire system in depth, such as the comprehensive analysis is rather expansive. So each area of the whole security infrastructure must be tested thoroughly. So therefore, on average, white box penetration testing can take 2 to 3 weeks time. So the another penetration testing process is a black box testing. So in this black box penetration testing, that otherwise called the external, this black box, or we call this as your external penetration testing, PT is said, right? So this black hat attackers, white hat attackers are different from black box penetration testing and white box penetration testing. So in this black box penetration testing, this is an approach used to simulate an attack from outside the network, from outside the network. or outsider, we can say. So the tester has very little information about the system. They don't have any information. So this approach allows running test in a setting close, setting closest to a real life hacker's attack. So the cost of these penetration tests can vary greatly depending on the business's IT infrastructure and requirements. So the attack can be complex, and the tester will use all possible means to break into the system. So to perform a quality block box audit, testers must have a specialist experience in this case. So then in this we can simply say that the pen testers have no information about the target system, but they must rely on their own research to develop an attack plan as a real world hackers. So another third one is uh, you find the in gray box test. So in gray box test, the pen testers get some information about the systems, but not much. So the company might share the IP ranges for the network devices, because, as we said, the company is split into. So IP ranges, they may say that test the devices which are connected in the IP range like 192.168. Some 1.15 to 1.15 to suppose the 50. That means, as we know that in the network, every device is identified with its the identity. That if email server is there, email server IP address is given that 192.168 suppose 1.15. If the employer is there, the device IP address may be 192.168 1 dot suppose 21. Or if any other devices are there, they may have other IP addresses like 192.168 suppose 1 suppose 38. So the range is given. So the company might share these IP ranges for network devices, but the pen testers will have to probe those IP ranges for vulnerability on their own. So, or simply we can say that the gray hat hackers, the gray box penetration testing is a mix of your black box and white box. So first, the tester has the partial information and access to the system, and from there they will use a wide range of techniques and tools to break into it. So one common gray pen testing scheme is giving the tester standard user privileges. So note that for this approach, the customer might request a specific set of conditions. For example, trying to get access to the application source code from the position of a registered user account. So due to this methodology, gray penetration testing is more precisely targeted. So the customer might use their budget most efficiently. In addition, this testing allows the creation of particular recommendations on how to get rid of the identified vulnerabilities. So that is, so with the scope set, as said, testing begins, whether it may be your black box testing or white box testing or gray box testing. So pen testers may follow some number of testing methodologies as we discussed, right? Yeah. So then comes to this is what we discussed. What are the different phases that involved in the penetration testing? So, regardless of which methodology a testing team uses, whether it is a black box testing methodology or white box testing methodology or gray box testing methodology, regardless of that, the uh, the penetration testers, the process usually follows the series of steps. So the overall process of penetration testing can be broken down into some series of steps. That is, we are going to focus on four step process to explore and learn penetration testing. One is the reconnaissance phase of penetration testing, scanning phase, then exploitation phase, and post exploitation phases. So but there is one exception to this rule, that the final step in many hacking methodologies is a phase called hiding, or covering your tracks, or the removing the evidences is there. So in this reconnaissance phase, uh, so in many cases, penetration testers must access and penetrate a series of related targets. Series of related targets means the compromising missions before they can directly attack the original targets. That means if we have a original target is here, original target PCR server is here, suppose, then the attack pen testers, they try to access the router first, or do the the pen test on routers. Then from router, it is connected to the switch, then switch is connected to suppose server. So that is that the pen testers, they do the penetrate the series of related targets, that from first goes to router, router to switch, switch to the servers. So before they are going to directly attack this original one. So in this case, each of the phases of your penetration test will be repeats. That is, they goes under for reconnaissance phase of phase for this router, then scan this router ports, then exploit the router ports, then the post exploitation, and then same process continues for switch, and same process continues for the servers also. That is, each of the steps is often repeated here. So the process of compromising one machine, the process of compromising one machine, uh, suppose if you have the network, that you have the router here, the router is connected the switch, and the switch is connected to the the PC1, connected to PC2. The switches are used to connect these end devices, PC3, and assume that PC4 connected, right? So in this process, when the pen tester is trying to access any of these, suppose PC1 is compromised, PC1 is compromised by the pen tester because of having some vulnerabilities, let us assume that, then make this PC1 as a starting point, and using this compromised machine to compromise another machine in the network like PC2, PC3, and PC4. We call this chain of process as pivoting. Okay, that is compromising one machine and then using that machine to compromise another machine, we call pivoting. And for this, the pen testers often need to pivot through the several computers or networks before reaching their final targets. If the final target is suppose a server here, before reaching that, they are going to compromise all this. So the testing, this is what the as a pen testers do, maybe the internal pen testers or external pen testers, they follow these phases. So as we said, the first phase is your reconnaissance phase. What happens in the reconnaissance phase? So if you see, the testing team gather the information on the target system. Gather the information means what is the IP address of the target system, which services are running, like TCP or UDP services, which services are running on that machine, whether the ports are open or not, like these TCP ports, like 21 port or 23rd port, and so on. So whether ports are open or not, what is the website address, what is the website address, who is the administrator of the target system, like that. So the testing team gathers information about the target systems, and pen testers use the different reconnaissance methods. The reconnaissance, sometimes you call the recon methods. So different recon methods are used depending on the target. So if the target is suppose app, any app, then they targets the source code. If the target is suppose entire network, suppose, then they go with the packet analyzer like your Wireshark or Nmap method is used to analyze this packet. Means what is the source IP address, what is the destination IP address, what are the payloads are there, what is the checksum. So those things can be identified, right? So the pen testers often draw on the open source intelligence as well to get these information, what is the IP address and this. So or by reading the public documents, news articles, and the even employees social media and GitHub accounts. So pen testers can glean the valuable information about their targets. So in open source intelligence systems, as you know that uh, in the open source intelligence system, the threat intelligence is detailed here. There are the actionable threat information for preventing and fighting the cyber threat, targeting and organization. So that information can be gathered from different that organization specific, that is focused on not on the generalities, like but a specific vulnerabilities in the organization's attack surface, that the attack they enable and the assets they expose. And another one is the detailed and conceptual or the actionable information that will be gathered from this open intelligence system by using different methods. Then comes to the next phase is the scanning phase. So before that, you say if you have more information you collect about your target, you likely to succeed in the later phases in scanning, post I mean the post exploitation and exploitation one. So the first and foremost one of any of the penetration tester is to gather the target IP addresses to connect with the device. In the scanning phase, the pen testers use the knowledge they gained in the reconnaissance phase to identify exploitable vulnerabilities in their systems. So, for example, pen testers may use a port scanners like, as we said, the Nmap. The port scanner is used to check whether the ports are TCP ports or your UDP ports are open. These ports are whether these ports are open or closed one. If they are open, then those ports can be used to connect the target. So or those, if they were nmaps to look for these open ports where they can send the malware to the target system. So for a social engineering pen test, the testing team might develop a fake stories like the pretext. So they will use in phishing, they will use this the plain text they will use in the phishing email to steal the employees credentials. So in pretext, what they do in pretexting is use of the fabricated story or the pretext to gain a victim's trust and trick or manipulate them into sharing the sensitive information or downloading the malware or sending money to criminals or otherwise harming themselves or the organizations they work for. So pretexting is a core tactic of targeted social engineering attacks such as the spear phishing, the the whaling or business email compromising, or the BEC or see below. But criminals and the mere the terrestrial criminals may also use the pretexting on its own to steal the valuable information or assets from the individuals or the organizations. So that we'll try to discuss more about this later. So the vulnerability scanning is the process of locating and identifying specific weakness in the software and the services of our target. So specific weaknesses of your software means if there any weakness in SQL database software, suppose, then the data can be modified, updated, or deleted, or entire database can be controlled by the attackers. So the next phase is the exploitation phase. So in the exploitation, once we know exactly what ports are open, suppose a port 21 is open, that means your SSL connection can be done with the target. The SSL, that is, we can say that remote connection. So remotely you can connect with the target. So the exactly what ports are open and what services are running, whether running the TCP service or UDP services on those ports, and what vulnerabilities are associated with those services. So then the pen testers can begin to attack the target to exploit those security issues to the vendor. Okay. So that is the tools which provide this push button mass exploitation that most newcomers associated with the real hackers. So this exploitation can involve lots of different techniques, tools, and codes to exploit the target, and the exploitation can occur locally or remotely. So if the pen tester doing this exploitation internally, then or then it is locally. If doing from outside, then it is from the externally can be done that. So the local exploitation requires the attacker to have the physical access to their computers, servers, while remote exploitation occurs through the network and systems when the attackers cannot physically touch the target. So many attackers today will because there are total 65 thousand 65 535 ports are there. Out of that, the attackers cannot go with all these ports. Instead of that, they select a single port. The skilled malicious hackers, they select a single port or the interrogate a single service to find a way of compromising the target or owning the target, right? So the block box testing process also has the advantage of allowing a company to test its incident response procedure, sending a request and getting the acknowledgement for that, and to determine if their defenses are capable of detecting and stopping a targeted attack is one. So, in this, the testing team begins the actual attack. That is, pen testers may try a variety of attacks depending on the target system and the vulnerabilities they found on the target system and the scope of the test. Whether the scope is for black box testing or white box testing or the gray box testing, right? So some of the most common tested attacks includes the SQL injection, that pen testers try to get a web page or a app to disclose sensitive data by entering malicious code into input fields of the organization. Another one is the cross-site scripting. That is, the pen testers try planning malicious code in a company's original website. Another one is the denial of service attacks. So pen tests are try to take the servers, apps, and other network resources offline by flooding them with the traffic. That means what? In denial of service, uh, or to define this, the distributed denial of service is also there. Distributed denial of service attack aims to disable or take down a website or web application or cloud services or the other online resources by overwhelming it with pointless connection requests. That is, the fake packets or other malicious traffic. So, unable to handle the volume of illegitimate traffic, the target slows to a crawl or crashes altogether, so making it unavailable to the legitimate users. So the cyber criminals have been using distributed denial of service attacks to disrupt network operations for more than 20 years. But recently, their frequency and power have, the speaked. So, according to the report, one of the report of distributed denial attacks that rose by the 203% in the first half of 2022. So this distributed denial of attacks are part of the broader category. So denial of service attack, which includes all cyber attacks that you find the cyber attacks, the different cyber attacks that is for money, business purpose, or any other things. Like the cyber attacks, if they are successful, suppose, I mean the distributed denial of service attack is done, suppose, then they can malware or denial of service attacks to cause systems or servers crashes. Like SQL injection attacks allow hackers to alter, delete, or steal data from the system. So that is one thing. And then comes to the next kind of one is social engineering. As we discussed, social engineering is pen testers use phishing, wishing, smishing, or baiting, pretexting, or other tactics to trick employees into compromising network security. Another one is the brute force attack, that pen tests try to break into a system by running scripts that generate and test potential passwords until one works. And another one is man in the middle attack. So in exploitation, it also happened man in the middle attack. So pen testers intercept traffic between two devices or two users to steal sensitive information or they plant the malware. So these are, then comes to your post exploitation and maintaining the access, that is the final phase, which examines the post exploitation and maintenance access. So the payloads delivered in the exploitation phase provide us with only temporary access to the system, not the whole access. To get the complete privileges or as a administrative privileges, to get that one, post exploitation is required. So because most payloads are not persistent, so we need quickly move into a post exploitation in order to create a more permanent backdoor to the system. So if you get the all the privileges of your administrator, then you get the permanent backdoor to the system. At any time you can enter and at any time you can leave that. So this process allows our administrative access to survive the program, which is closer, and even the reboot the systems also. Reboot the system also. So once pen testers have exploited a vulnerability to get a the foothold in the system, they try to move around and access even more of it. So this phase, sometimes called vulnerability chaining or because pen testers move from vulnerability to vulnerability to get deeper into the network. So they might start by planning the keylogger on an employee's computer, and using that keylogger, they can capture the employee's credentials, and using those credentials, they can access a sensitive database. So at this stage, the pen tester's goal is maintaining access and escalating their privileges while avoiding security measures. So pen testers do all of this to imitate the advanced persistent threats that APT we call, so which can lock in a system for weeks, right? So then cleaning up and reporting, that is maintaining access. So at the end of the simulated attack, pen testers clean up any traces they have left behind, like backdoor trojans they planted, or configurations they changed. So that way real world hackers can't use the pen testers exploits to breach the network. So then the pen testers prepare a report on the attack. That report typically outlines vulnerabilities they found, exploits they used, details on how they avoided security features, and descriptions of what they did while inside the system. So the report may also include specific recommendations on vulnerability remediations. So the in-house security team can use this information to strengthen defense against the real world attack. So with this, I would like to stop this session, and we'll continue the penetration testing tools in the next session.